Chapter 12. Dawn in Iron. Dawn came early and without apology. Camp lightened in slow breaths. Stove fires roused. Lines of steam began to speak from kettles. Leather creaked where men and women put names back on with buckles and straps. The ridge held its grey until the sun found it. Hail came to her before the light fully chose a colour. He did not speak at first. He set the cedar box on the low chest and undid the little lock with the care of a man opening a door he did not own. Cedar and old oil rose like a memory. Riff stood, shirt already tied to respect linen, hair braided tight enough to keep its own counsel. "We'll be quick," he said. "It will feel heavier in your hands than on your back." They worked without theatre. Hale had fitted armour for boys trying to pass for men, and for men trying to pretend they were still boys. He did not force any peace. He negotiated with them the way he negotiated with stubborn horses. Offer, patience, insistence at the right moment. The cuirass took her with a relief that surprised both of them. The shape had already agreed with the person. Gorget next. She lifted her chin, and the plate came to sit where a hand might rest if allowed. Vambras's, the left with the inside already filed true from some woman's hand long ago. Pollins and cuisses that did not ask bone to be straight where it wasn't. The fold settled like a sentence finishing itself. When the last buckle lay flat under his thumb, the air changed. She felt it even before she named it. Magic. Not a roar, not a fog, but the background shimmer she had always been aware of, shrank back like a crowd when a door opens to someone who has the right to walk through. It was not violent. It was a refusal to be useless. Noise invisible to most went quiet. Edges of weather, Marius's weather, came to order around the edges of the plate as if iron had reminded wind of its manners. She inhaled and felt with a sharpness that almost made her sit that if she asked the armour to finish the work, it would. One more step and it would crush magic flat in the space around her until sparks forgot their invention. She did not take that step. It was not hers to take. "It amplifies what you carry," Hale said, as if he had read the line sketch itself inside her. The stories always had the same shape. Both princesses who wore it were marked under covenant from the East. His mouth bent wry for a breath. That's the word they used. Marked. Not married. Under an oath that wasn't this country's. She thought of the day the white dress had gone over her head like a flag raised to mean more things than fabric has room for. The joke she had made in the mirror. How much easier the choice would have been if someone had said it came bundled with armour. "I would have said yes quicker," she said with humour. "If they'd told me it came with metal that remembers how to behave." Hale's eyes were amused without being unkind. "You would have said yes anyway," he said. "This only fits because you already had." He tightened one strap with the kind of neatness that offends sloppiness by its existence. "I'll see that your horse is at your door." He left the tent with the box under his arm, cedar lid closed again out of respect, and went to turn a line of cooks, carters, and captains into work. Outside, men hammered wedges home as if arguments could be solved that way. Horns held their peace. The sky was the particular pale that makes promises sound like work rather than romance. Alone for a breath, Riff tried the weight. Armour taught the body quickly what it would have to carry. Weight flowed to memory places, hips, the catch of shoulder, lower back. That knew how to take it and be honest. She stood still until the initial protest became an acceptance. The responsibility took longer than the iron to sit down, but it came to sit. She closed her eyes once, not for prayer, but to centre the small place inside where fear can be told to go wait by the door and not be in the way. When she stepped outside, the camp's noise shifted a quarter tone. It wasn't awe. It was a relief standing up. The mare stood ready, ears forward as if curious who had borrowed her rider and returned her slightly different. Hale had left the reins looped over the picket. He was already a moving point in a line gathering itself into a fit at the ready. She took the reins, set a boot in the stirrup, and discovered the prediction about weight, exceeded by balance. Iron changed the way a saddle answered, but her horse did not mind. She swung up, with less pain than she had earned yesterday. They made a platform out of what was there, a stacked cart, a pair of trestles, a plank carried on two men's shoulders with the particular reverence men give objects that will keep other men from falling. Hale lifted a palm. Sound agreed to be quiet. The army does not love speeches. It tolerates truth if truth arrives on time and does not demand more than a body can pay. She did not give them poetry. The armor would have made a mockery of it. "You do not hold this line for me," she said. "We hold it for the people who will never see this field, the bakers who counted your loaves, the smiths who kept your horses' shoes honest, the children who woke up warm today because you came here. We hold it so there is still a home to go back to. We hold it for each other, for the hand that passes you a canteen, for the back that will cover yours when you slip, for the surgeon who will need time and light. If one of you must be brave, buy the person beside you a breath. If you must choose between a step that makes a song and a line that does not break, choose the line. You don't owe me glory. You owe each other steady feet, clean orders, full canteens. Eat when told. Move when told. Tell the truth quickly. Keep your sergeants, your cooks, your medics alive, and they will keep you alive. I will do the same. I will not ask for a thing I will not do. I will be where the ground is worst. If something wants me, it will take the steel first. We are here to hold a country together long enough for morning to matter." She did not shout. She did not ask for their voices. She gave them back their work. Hale said nothing. He did not need to. The roar that came started wrong. Thin at first, curious whether it was allowed, and then found its bottom in the chests of men and women who understood that being treated like adults is a kind of love. The sound went up the rock, across the valley, and out to the places where dust already thought about lifting into columns. On the cliff, Marius stood inside his circle of sand and felt the air agree to carry the sound to him. The flags at his rack clicked once, a wind that had been holding its breath released and remembered how to be useful. He breathed out without knowing he had been refusing it. Then he began to knit weather, thread by thread, in patterns that would be asked of him before noon. There was not much time. Scouts sent their long, thin notes across the flats. No panic, just information. Distant dust acquired shape. The horizon, which had been a posture, became a challenge. Hale stepped down from the makeshift platform, lifted a hand, and men moved. Posts of command took the places that had been marked under canvas the night before. Signal flags shook themselves awake atop their poles. Drums impatiently warned their skins they would be used properly soon. Carts loafed to the rear, and then, corrected by the quartermasters, unloafed and got out of the bloody way. A boy with 2 big boots was redirected by Tarsa toward the right ditch with a 2-word sentence that saved him 3 mistakes. Rife sat a moment longer so they could see the armor do the ordinary thing of being worn by someone who knew what weight meant. Then she touched heel to mare and rode down the line. She did not throw her hand up. She did not play at princes. She checked the place where the abattis narrowed wrong and told the nearest sergeant to send 2 men with axes. Hale met her where the ground had the right angle to host him. "They heard you," he said. "They heard work," she corrected. "Same thing today." He turned, then turned back with the small human thing he had remembered. His knuckles tapped lightly at the gorget in the old soldier's benediction. "Keep your chin," he said. "If something wants you, let it take the steel first." "Understood." He left her the same way he had left the tent. Not retreat, not dismissal, simply moving toward what needed his name. She watched him 3 steps and then faced the line that was no longer a plan, but a presence. On the cliff, the sand took the first testing spark, and ate it politely. Marius set his palm to the rock again, a brief reminder of a contract made in the grey hour. Below him, the army settled into the shape of acceptance that always comes in the last quiet, before the two sides ask each other the question that can't be unasked. The enemy was almost there. The day had already chosen its weather. Now men and women would choose what they could bear, and iron, quiet, true, would remind them of the difference. Chapter 13. The Taking at Dusk. The battle came in all its brutality by afternoon, as if the day had saved its worst manners for the hour when hands were already tired. It was fierce and bloody, and the field learned what fields always do when men have prepared. Who had the better army? Ours was more disciplined, more focused, less afraid, and better led. Hale's geometry held. Ref's orders kept their edges. Men and women did what they had been taught, even when fear reminded them it had teeth. Pikes set in staggered teeth where the slope bit. Archers worked from the shelf of rock with their backs against something that would not lie to them. Cavalry slept under a fold of the ridge and woke only when Hale's hand made the small, unmistakable cut in the air that meant now. No flourish, only craft. Above them all, the cliff kept its promise. Marius kept the weather a friend. The wind stayed honest where he set it. A steady hand at our shoulders and a petty shove at theirs. Heat that tried to pool in our low places broke and walked on. Twice a sly flare rolled along the enemy's front, some hedge mages bid, to make wood go brittle and mouths lose courage. Both times the bolt leaned toward the ring of sand Marius had drawn at dawn and died there, like a match forgotten in a basin. Drums and flags spoke cleanly from his height, and the air carried them the way it carries a promise when the promiser is someone it respects. The enemy came as pride comes, too loud and a little late to learn. Riders cracked like whips along the front and snapped off on pike heads. Light men tried to crawl under spear points and found the ugly surprise Hale had left them. Second ranks already on a knee, shields roofed low, javelins ready. Arrows hissed in the rhythm, real archers keep in their teeth. A wedge of mailed men trotted into a ditch that did not care about money. It was not clean. Pain does not respect discipline. People screamed anyway. Surgeons worked without asking the field to admire them. Cooks made saints of themselves, ladling heat into mouths that shook too hard to keep it. Fear came when it pleased, and was made to sit on a bench and wait its turn like everyone else. By late light the sun had slid low enough to put a gold rim on helmets and a black honesty into shadows. The ridge threw a long bar across the field. The last of their pushes were the wrong kind of courage, the blind, lonely sort that does not ask its neighbours what they can bear. Those men died as bravely as anyone ever has, and just as uselessly. The line on the far side went thin, then ragged, then something that was mostly backs. With victory leaning toward us at last, Raf turned, habit, not vanity, toward the high place where she had learned to spend her worry without emptying herself with it. She looked to the cliff to see Marius, hands at the ropes, shoulders square, the small tilt of his head that meant he was listening to wind as if it were a colleague. What she saw made her blood go cold in one quick, efficient stroke. Out of the west's high glare, a pale blue dragon dropped, ice-coloured, river-bright when winter is thin, with a rider tight to its neck. No roar, no pageant. A hawk's clean strike that had already chosen which rabbit would not see another spring. It skimmed the cliff in a neat arc, wingtip teasing the flag rack by a hand. The rider reached. Marius did not resist, as if sleep had taken him standing, or as if something quiet had turned his will aside like a chin turned by a fingertip. An arm closed around him. The pale blue banked with the contemptuous ease of something very strong doing a simple thing, and went away, killing height with one push, the line of their flight, a knife pointed toward the western capital. Riff's mare took the step she would have taken for any order and found herself checked hard because there was nothing in the world for her to carry her rider toward. There are furies that do not make a spectacle of themselves. What came into Rife then was one of them. It did not scream. It set its feet and made a vow that could be carried in the mouth without breaking. Whoever dared lay a hand on her man would pay for it, under law, under covenant, under anything that would not make her into what she was not. She would eat, she would sleep, she would keep the line, vengeance would wait on a leash, and learn to heel. She could not follow. The old covenant would not let dragons be ordered into human wars, and even had she had one to call, Elisa's vow and her own armour said no. The ridge held no wings. The field still asked for her hand. She turned back because duty is the only bridge worth walking when the river throws up its hands and flees. They won, and they paid. It ended the way ugly things end, not in triumph, but in work continuing. They buried the dead. They tended the wounded. They counted, because counting is a better prayer than most. Names were said properly. Bands were tightened by hands that had learned how to tie a thing without being thanked for it. That night there was no speech. Hale went post to post until he had nothing left to offer except the weight of a hand on a shoulder. Men who had questions left him with less to carry because he had made their piece of the wall make sense. Rife sat once, only once, long enough to set her forehead to the heel of her hand and press away the burn beneath her eyes, then stood again and made another round because rounds are how the living reassure each other. High Pass would need to know. At the bend of the trampled road, in the hour when fires learn to talk softly and tents become large breathing animals, pleased to be used and not burned, she found Hale. "We will send messengers tonight," she said. He did not ask what or why. "Who?" "Two," she said. "One to the nest, one to the king. Kataran will count what he needs and send what we will need. We cannot let rumours get there first." She hesitated. "And to Elisa. Not as a call to arms, as a courtesy owed. This breaks more than mortal law." Hale tipped his head the small degree men do, who prefer truth to comfort. "Say it." "By the covenant older than kingdoms," Rife said, each word steady, each word a nail. "Dragons do not take part in human wars. Their duty is their hoard. Their exception is the defence of that hoard. Dragons have their laws. What happened on that cliff was not hunger. A dragon with a rider took a prince from a field. That's not theft. That's blasphemy against the covenant that lets men sleep under roofs while wings pass overhead." "West," Hale said. "Pale blue. Rider." "Yes." He did not console, it would have insulted them both. "Then we count. Then we mend. Then we write. Then we force their hand on ground that suits people, not monsters." She nodded. They slept in pieces the first 2 nights. In between there were lists and carts and a boy who had never before been asked to carry a letter that might make a city hold its breath. There was a mare found 3 fields over with a cut that would not kill her and would mark her as one of ours forever. There was a company that gently told them they would stand the first watch again because they were the only ones who could. And they did it without making a show of being heroes. On the 3rd day, when the ground had stopped pretending it was anything except what it was, and the smell of turned earth had wrestled the smell of blood to a draw, Rife permitted the pretense of rest. She sat on the cart tongue, boots planted, palms on wood, and let the sun do the decent work of heating a back that had made itself into a wall for too long. A shadow crossed, not a hawk's stripe, not a vulture's lazy sprawl. Weight and grace in treaty. 2 dragons wheeled overhead, black and gold. The black moved like lacquered night, whole glossed, the kind of dark that loves light because it knows it can hold it. The gold was not coin shine but bell metal, harvest bright, leadership's gravity written into the wing. Both were familiar the way true things are familiar. Riff was on her feet before her mouth had decided which of 3 orders to give, the one that won, was the simplest. "Stand down, bows!" she barked. "Colours up! Friends salute!" Flags climbed. Men who had never in their lives been told to look upon a dragon with anything except the kind of respect that makes a body look small, looked up with something like welcome, and remembered that sometimes terror earns your bread and sometimes it brings it. The pair banked, circled once over the graves, and tipped wings in an old, correct salute. Then the gold came lower, very low, skillful as handwork, and there was no mistaking her any more. "Raina," Rife said, the name leaping from the back of her throat to the air as if it had been waiting there for years to be permitted. She raised both arms, palms out, the signal Elisa had taught the pass, to tell the sky it was among friends. Then, small and human and fierce, she waved. The black shadowed her steady as a promise, and the two of them wrote a circle over the camp that meant, "We have come because we can do what you cannot, under covenant, under law." Rife let herself breathe once. Then she turned to Hale. "Now," she said, salt in the word and iron under it. "We hold this ground. We wait for our letters. And when it is time, we go get him back." Hale grunted his assent. His face had the look men's faces get when they are ashamed of having ever been young enough to think courage is the loud part of a day. "Write the plan," he said. "After I wash my hands," she answered, and went to do exactly that. Work first, vengeance on a leash, and friends in the sky, circling, black and gold against a blue that was not cruel anymore, not today. Chapter 14. Water and Covenant. They came with the wind behaving itself, and a letter that had learned to be heavy without weighing much. Raina landed clean, gold-banked and tidy. Black shadowed her and tucked himself into the air like a man who has finally taught his feet to trust the ground. Severin shed wing and shape the way a promise removes its cloak at a threshold. The silver band at his throat caught a stingy ray of sun. Rife felt the armour's quiet greet the pair and return to its hum. Hale's hand lifted once in the small cut that tells an army to mind its work and not indulge curiosity. Carts kept rolling, pikes kept counting their points, cooks bullied onions. Only the space around the three of them admitted something had changed. Raina held out the packet. "From your father," she said. "He writes fast when he must, and legibly when frightened for people he loves." Riff broke the seal, and the court's clean smell, ink, smoke, the faintest ghost of citrus oil, rose out like an old habit. The script was the Eastern King's, exact, untroubled by ornaments, the ink spared for what mattered. "Daughter, a friend who owes me life and bread writes from the Western Court. There is a woman there, called a sorceress by those who need names to feel safe. She works with water and men. Her magic is a slow river and a sudden tide. Men who pride themselves on will go easy under it. A few women sway as well. She sets herself near power and lets obedience imagine itself love. The pale blue is not free. They call it devotion, so as not to call it slavery. He answers from the sky when she says the word. This is not hunger. This breaks the covenant that lets men live while dragons fly. You are at the line. I ask nothing I have not earned the right to ask. Only this, keep the law between our peoples. If you must break the blue to free him, do so. If you can save the man, I will owe you what a father owes a daughter he did not raise. Hold your ground. My spy says a move toward your field is likely." Raphael. Rife read it once as a commander, again as a daughter, and a third time as the person in armour that drank sorcery like rain and turned it into nothing anyone could spend. She passed it to Hale. He read as old soldiers do, fact, weather, food, lie, then folded it along its first crease and put it in his belt, as if that made the message harder to drop by accident. Raina's mouth had found its straight line. "I came to offer what the covenant requires," she said, "not a boast. A statement placed where work can see it. Gold and Black will remove the blue from her hand if he comes. We will not burn men to do it. We will keep to the law." Severin nodded once, the ribbon of his bond unnecessary and still understood. "We will try to keep him whole," he added, careful, as if speaking near a skittish animal. "If we cannot, we will keep him alive." Riff breathed. It steadied into the kind of plan that makes a day bearable. "Good," she said. "Then we put the field in order to give you a clean place to do uncivilized things in a civilized way." Hale's grin was the dangerous small one. "Army holds the line," he said, as if the sentence had been waiting for someone to say it aloud so it could get to work. "I'll set the teeth where the slope bites hardest. Reserve where pride will likely try us. We don't chase, we let them come and be disappointed." "Scouts ahead," Riff added. "Quiet ones. If the blue shows, She looked to Renna and Severin. "You take him down to where I can reach. I will force the change." Her palm brushed the gorget. The armor's hum agreed to be asked. "After that," she went on, "we listen to the man, if there is a man. The rider may be more prisoner than captor, or not." The last two words were a blade she did not pretend wasn't sharp. Hale's fingers began to tick off the practicals. "Signals," he said. "We keep hand and flag, not voice. No calls, no music, no messengers within the woman's shadow. If she works with water, she will work sound and pulse. I'll set sergeants who hate being pretty on the anchor posts." Riff nodded. "Eye lines fixed, hands busy. We rotate anyone who starts smiling in the wrong way." "Ground rules for will," Reiner said softly, catching the shape. "If a man begins to love the wrong thing, we will love him back into himself by placing him where love is inconvenient." Severin's mouth flickered, a ghost of humour learning again the dignity of living. "I can carry messages between sky and dirt," he offered. "Gold takes down the blue. Black brings words to where hands can be useful." "Good," Hale said. "Then we write the order of it and tell no one stories about heroics." They told the line what it needed to know, that there would be trouble with manners, that water would act like a rumour, that women were not immune to folly, and men not to be blamed for being beautiful idiots. They told cooks to keep the pots loud. They told medics to brace for burns that came with shame, and to treat the second more gently than the first. They told the ground it would be asked to carry more than its share, and it did not complain. By evening, work had learned most of what the day could teach, and the light thinned to the colour men pretend is gold in cheap rings. The fire at command's edge burned in the correct way, steady, attentive, until it acquired 2 dragons. Gold lay beyond the circle, heat banked the way good stew is banked to wait for late men. Black sat closer and watched sparks the way a hound watches a hand. With trust, he has chosen. When Severin remembered to be a man again, the silver at his throat caught firelight and made it honest. Hale approached with the patience of someone who has learned to live with questions and the tact to leave them where they belong. He stood, hands behind him so as not to ask for anything by mistake, and cocked his head at the company Riff kept. "I have carried armies that did not have such interesting friends," he observed, dry as bread for travelling. "And I have many questions I am too old to enjoy asking. Abbreviate me a history, Commander, before the men begin inventing a better one." Riff looked into the fire and let it write the edges of what memory she would make public. "After the nest," she said. The word home without the indulgence. "We went east as children do when they are told their futures are written on clever paper. We found a black dragon in the trees who had forgotten he was also a man. Rhaena flew, Marius schemed. I fell badly, and did not die because wind is obedient to a boy who will one day be king, and because I am hard to kill." Severin's mouth made the smallest apology, and Riff flicked a glance that told him he was forgiven for things that preceded language. "We bound him," she went on, "kindly. Collars and rope. Honest ones for safety, not ownership. We taught him the courtesy of choosing." Her eye slid to the silver and its green memory. He chose. He remembered his name in a mirror. It was Severin. We claimed his bounty and paid for goats and shame, bought him a proper shirt and a proper collar. We went to court to find the man who made me and found him. Then I found that the courts bite. Raina's smile was a line a knife would be foolish to argue with. We taught him to be both when asked, she said. And Severin's hand touched the collar without defensiveness, gratitude making itself small in public. The rest you've seen, Riff finished. Armor that drinks magic. A covenant that requires us to behave. A boy stolen on a pale wing. A friend who arrives with a letter that says water is lying to men and a dragon, and must be corrected. Hale's chin dipped in the old soldier's bow to a truth that has not asked to be gilded. Good enough, he said. I don't need the poetry. I need only to know what you do when a thing needs doing. Exactly this, Riff said. They sat then as people sit when they have found their plan, not relieved, exactly, but satisfied that when morning asks its questions, they will not hesitate while searching for words. Raina stretched once, the gold of her along the ground like a road rolled flat for friends. When the blue comes, she said, for the fire to keep, I will put him where your hand can find him. Severin will carry what you decide back to me. We will keep the sky civil. Riff put her palm to the gorget. The armor's quiet was a promise she would make good. And I, she said voice level, will remind a dragon of his human name. The fire, which had learned to behave itself around people who treated it like a colleague, agreed by doing its only honest trick. It burned.